Hashem. Okay, today's last daf, Bez Hashem, in daf Samach Vav. I brought a little wine for the little siyum that I'm going to make. Okay, we're starting from that Mishnah. The Mishnah on Samach Vav, on Samach Heyam and Beis. Okay, the Mishnah, about like 10 lines from the 12 lines from the bottom. So I just want to tell you. So okay, so you know if a person has an ejaculation and emission of semen, so you're tummy for a day. But the Chumash describes a situation where a person could be a tamei zav, which means that the testicles are not working properly. You could be a healthy person, but the testicles are not working properly, and you give off an emission. I don't know what it's called in English. I can't find it, but it's like the semen that comes out. First of all, you're not aroused, so it just drips out, and second of all, it comes out. It's not sticky. So that's the two differences between a zav and a regular semen ejaculation. One, the way its texture, and also how it's discharged. So what does the Torah say about that? If someone has a zav and he sees it one time, so then you're like a balkari, you're like someone who discharged semen, so you're tummy for a day. But if you did it twice, then the halacha is then you must be sick, and therefore you have to have 7 clean days of no dripping, nothing. If you have a semen, then you just it interrupts your day, but you shouldn't have a dripping of a zav for 7 days. You go to the mikveh, you become clean. What happens if you have 3 days in a row zav drippings? Okay, you have 3 days in a row zav drippings. So then, what's the halacha? After you have 7 clean days, you go to the mikveh and you bring a korban. I think that this korban is like a thank you.
A lot easier than it was easier than I thought it would be. I have a math test right after pizza.
It's like a thank you to Hashem that you got healed. So that's the point of this now. So the Mishnah wants to say over here this is the Mishnah describing the 7 checks, the 7 excuses. Let's say somebody's a zav. He's not a zav. He saw it one time. Now, so technically, all he has to do is wait 1 day of cleanliness and go to the mikveh, and you're fine. But what happens if he sees the second time? So we said the second time you become a zav and then you have to wait for 7 days, right? For the second time, you have to wait for 7 days. Now comes the Mishnah and explains that if you have a reason why you saw a zav for the second time, then that second time is discounted, and that you're excused, and you're not considered a zav who saw twice. You're only considered a zav who saw one. So that's the question. Now let's begin the Mishnah. B'shiva drachim. There are 7 excuses. Let's call it excuses that we can assume that if someone did something like this and then saw ziva for the second time, he's not a zav of seeing 2 zivas. We discount it because the only reason why he saw this zav drip out of him is because of what he did. Until he's a full-fledged zav, in other words, he saw a zav one time, but he's not a full-fledged zav. For the second time, we check to see if we have an excuse of why he saw this dripping coming from his body. For example, b'machal, if a person eats certain types of food, let's say he ate wine or eggs or oil, then he sees a zav, so we'll say that that's not really a zav. The only reason why this zav dripped from you is because you ate this kind of food. Or v'mishta, or you drank, let's say, old wine, very difficult wine. So then that's why you became, that's what made you into a zav. So we discount it. B'masa, if let's say you carried heavy objects and then you saw zav. So we check to see if that's the reason why you saw this dripping, we'll discount it. Uve kvitza. Kvitza is like exercise. You did exercise, then we discount it that you're not a zav. Uvechayli, let's say a person was sick. Let's say he had temperature, or he had an infection, and that's why he saw this zav business. So then we will discount your droppings. Uvamara, or let's say you saw something scary on television. Okay, or you saw just a woman and you in this avila, you had a desire for a woman, you saw it, or over here, or you thought about the act of intercourse. All these things are excuses why the zav drippings dripped from you, and therefore, if you can blame it on these things, then you're not a zav. But once you became a zav, let's say you had two normal sightings of zav, so now I have to wait for 7 days and then become clean. But if I see a third time, you have to bring a carbon, right? It's once you bring 3 times, then you have to clean yourself for 7 days and bring a carbon. So even to become a zav that has to bring a carbon, for that third time, you don't have to check him. Automatically, no matter what excuse, since you already were a zav already, then we don't accept any excuses, so that for the third time that you're going to see zav, but for that third time, you're going to have to bring a carbon. I don't care why you became a zav for that third time. Einsai usveika. Einsai, if you were einsai, it means if you had this excuse. Again, it works for citing number 2, not for citing number 3. Usveika v'shich v'zarai. We're going to see what this means, and in the Gemara is going to explain what a sveika means, what a shich v'zari mean. Tameim shuraglayim ledavar. Because once you are already an established zav, too bad, that's it. Okay, then we don't accept any excuses. Next thing, hamak es chaver. You know, if you give a lethal blow to your friend, and let's say a person gave such a blow, and the guy died a few days later, he's a murderer, and then you kill him because he's a rotzeach. Now, if the Chumash says, but what happens if they estimated that he could, it wasn't such a lethal blow, even if he died, but if the experts say this guy wasn't going to die, then you're not a rotzeach, even if he died later. But what happens if you gave a lethal blow? The guy did not die, okay? The guy did not die. And then he got better, 100%. What's the halacha? What does the Chumash say? You have to pay 5 things, Sheves, Tsar, Ripu, Sheves, and Boishes, the 5 things that he pays doctor bills and loss of wages, etc., etc. You're not considered a Reitzeach. Our Mishnah is discussing that a guy gave a lethal blow to his friend. And then so he went into the hospital and he was expected to die. Then all of a sudden they see a little bit of improvement. And they said, oh, if he's improving a little bit, he's probably going to live, the expert said. But then he died. Is he a Reitzeach or not? Hamakes chaver. Somebody gave a lethal blow to his friend. The first thing that the experts did, and these are the Bezdin or the doctors, v'amduhu lemisa. They estimated that this lethal blow is going to kill him. And then the victim, v'hekel mamashahaya, it lightened up, and now he's not going to die. He's somehow a little bit better. And then la'ach mikain hichbid umeis. And then it got worse. La'ach mikain hichbid, it got worse. And once it got worse, they started to say that, he's going to die. Umeis, and he died. Chayav, the guy is a Retzeach. But he's a Retzeach. Even though in the between, he got a little bit better. Rabbi Nechemya said that what? That he's not a Retzeach. He's considered, since it got a little bit better, although not 100%, so then the Shuraglayim Ladava, because this assumption that he's on the path of getting better. That he died later on could be for different causes. So Rabbi Nechemya says you're potter from Misa, but of course you have to pay the Chamisha Devarim of what somebody who gives a blow to his friend has to pay. So the Gemara asks a question: how do I know if you have if by the second time, if he has an excuse why he has this droppings from his body, you accept it? Amar Rav Yonasan, Amakra, the pasuk says, "V'hazav ezoyve." When this thing flows from your body, la zochar in the keva. It says your zochar has a din like in the keva. That's the end of the pasuk. That the male and the female are the same. Well, a female, it doesn't matter what excuse, will always become tamei. The male is compared to the female, and we're not going to accept any excuses. So v'hazav means the first time we'll accept an excuse. Zoivai, the second time we'll accept an excuse, but by the third time we'll not accept any excuses. So l'ri'iyah shlishis ishkas l'nekeva. For the third time that the zav seeing that discharge, we're not going to accept any excuses. So if for the first 2 times he saw normal ziva, no excuse, no reason why he saw it. Then for the 3rd time, he can say that he had an excuse. He was doing exercise and this ziva fell from him. No problem. No excuses are accepted. And in order to be matar himself, he'll have to bring a carbon. Mind you, bringing a carbon means that in order for him, he can become tar, but in order for him to be allowed to become into the Beis Hamikdash, he has to bring a carbon. When he only saw twice, then all you have to do is go to the mikveh after 7 clean days. But once you see Riyah Shlishis, then you're obligated to bring a carbon in order for us to allow you to go back into the Beis Hamikdash. Says the Gemara, Vatanya, we learned in the Brisa, even by the 3rd time, we check him out. Buravias ain boit, can I say? By the 4th time, we don't check him out. In other words, during the 7 clean, Rabbi Lazar has an opinion. By the 3rd time, it's not considered. We do check him. We do accept excuses. But once you start collecting, he's starting to count 7 clean days after the 3rd time. He's trying to get clean of this thing. So he saw 3 times, and on the 4th time, let's say in middle of the 7 clean days, he saw ziva again. So then, even if he saw ziva for a particular reason, he has to recount those 7 days, because we don't accept excuses while you're attempting to become clean. So Rabbi Lazar says by the 3rd time you accept excuses, by the 4th time you don't accept excuses. So how do I know our Mishnah, who is the author, what is the machlokes all about? And in other words, what is Rabbi Lazar going to learn the pasuk? Because the pasuk says 1 vazov as zoiva is 2. You accept excuses. By the 3rd time l'zochel and nekeva, you don't accept excuses. So how does Rabbi Lazar learn the pasuk? Ela be'etem kom b'kvalgi. Rabbi Lazar has the word es. So Rabbi Lazar darish esim. Rabbi Ram loy darish esim. Rabbi Lazar will say zav is number 1, es is number 2, zoiva is number 3. For the first 3 shots, you accept excuses. By the 4th one, we don't accept excuses, but the Rabbanan, who's the author of our Mishnah, says that only by the 2nd one, we don't darshan the S. It's only the first 2 we accept an excuse. By the 3rd time, we don't accept an excuse. The Mishnah said, Oinsoy usveikai. What does that mean? We go to the top of Samech Vav. Amar Rava said, Loi time, don't say safek chaza, loi safek loi chaza. That means, a sveikoi means you're tahar. That means, don't say this is the pshat in the Mishnah. That if a guy doesn't know if he saw semen or if he saw zav discharge, we say you're tahar, because that's not what our Mishnah is discussing. What a doubt. If you're a doubt that you saw semen or zav, I guess you would go cheskas tahara. You'll say you're tahar anyway. Ella, our Mishnah is talking about vaday chazi. You for sure saw shich v'zera. Now let's talk about a guy who's counting those 7 clean days. If during those 7 clean days he saw a regular semen discharge, then all you have to do, let's say on day 5 of your clean days you saw a semen discharge, it doesn't mess you up. You just skip a day, and you can go back to counting and make up the last 2 days of the 7-day clean days. But if you saw a zav during those clean days, then you have to start again from number 1. Almost like Nazir, you have to restart the account of 7 clean days from number 1. However, let's say you saw zav, discharge of zav, and in the middle of the zav, you also saw a piece of semen in there. So it's a mix, one big mix. So then you would have to, we treat it as a carry, by the way. We treat it as a carry. We treat it as if a regular semen discharge, and you don't have to start from square 1. Our Mishnah is discussing a case where a guy wakes up one morning, he's counting his 7 clean days, it's day number 5, and he sees on one side of his pants a zav dripping. On the other side of his pants, he sees a semen dripping. Now, he doesn't know, maybe they came out at the same time, they just separated. Or he actually saw that they came out at different times. Or it's possible that the zav dropping came first, and then the semen dropping. So anyway, do you have to recount or not? So we're going to say like this: we don't know if it's the shich v'zera if they were both mixed together. Or maybe the reason why you're seeing twice, you're seeing 2 different pieces, 2 different droppings, is because they came out at 2 different times. Since you're already counting clean days, that means you are a zav already. Sveike tuma, we're going to go strict and make you count already, go back to recounting your 7 clean days. Another part of this Mishnah, Shich Bazarai Tameya. The Mishnah says that, let's say, a zav just discharge regular semen, it's tamei. So the Gemara says everybody who discharges semen is tamei. What does that Mishnah mean? Lamai, if someone touches the semen discharge of a zav, migara shich v'zara ditar, any tahar person that discharges shich v'zara is tamei. So what is it? What's the meaning? El zare shel zav mitama b'masa. The semen discharge of a zav has an extra strictness that not only if you touch it, you become tamei, but even if you carry it, let's say it's on a plate or something like that, if you carry it, you become tamei. And that makes the semen discharge of a zav worse than a regular person. So the Gemara says, then who's the author of our Mishnah? Who's the author of our Mishnah that says that shech v'zera of a zav is tamei with masa? Would you say it's this Tana? The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, Rabbi Lezer says it doesn't metama b'masa. The semen discharge of a zav is no different than the semen discharge of a regular tar person. It only is only metama if you touch it, not if you carry it. Rabbi Yeshua says metama b'masa. Rabbi Yeshua says no, if it's metama if you carry it, but not because it's a semen discharge by itself. It's impossible to have a semen discharge by a zav that doesn't have traces of zav in it, and therefore that's why it's metaba b'masa. So our Mishnah cannot even go like Rabbi Yeshua, because our Mishnah seems to say that if a zav issued forth, discharged 100% semen, it's metaba b'masa. Afilu Rabbi Yeshua, but even if you want to say it goes according to Rabbi Yeshua, loy ama el mishum tzuche ziva. He only says it's metaba b'masa because you have traces of zav in there. Alva be'enai, if it's 100% semen and 100% sich v'zarei, loy ama, he never said that it would be metaba b'masa. So who would our Mishnah go like? Ella Amar Rab Ada Bar Hava. Rab Abba Bar Hava said, I have another pshat in the Mishnah. What does our Mishnah mean? Shich v'zarei tameya. It means loimer. It's teaching you she'ain toilen ba. Wow, he's saying that if a person had ejaculation and has regular semen discharge, he's a tar person, right? And now he's a balkari. Then all of a sudden he has a zav flowing from him. The zav, remember, the discharge of a zav is not through ejaculation, and the discharge is not sticky. It has a different color. Then he's not a zav because she'ain toilen ba. We don't blame him. We don't blame him if he sees it the first time. He won't become a zav. We're going to say that the reason why you're discharging this zav because you just discharged semen. So now, but by the second time, but let's say by the third time, we won't accept that excuse, right? Once you're a zav already, we won't accept that as an excuse already. Savara papa kamei derava lemema. So, and that's what our Mishnah says. Shich v'zarei tameya means if you're already a zav and you want to blame it because you had a discharge of semen, we're not going to accept that as an excuse for you discharging zav. In other words, we accept other excuses, but the fact that you discharge shich v'zarei is not an excuse. Why? We're not going to accept that as an excuse if you're already a zav and you're discharging zav after you saw shich v'zarei. So Rav Papa Lemema, Rav Papa wanted to say that what does it mean? What's the excuse if someone sees shich v'zarei? That's an excuse why his body might discharge ziva. Either chulshi, because you're already weakened because you discharge semen, so you might discharge ziva, so we don't blame you. If that's the case, Amalei Rava, Vatnam, we learned in the Mishnah, Gershon is Gair. Let's say a Ger, right before becoming a Goy, right before becoming a Ger, what he does is he has a discharge of Keri. Imagine a Ger, a minute before he's becoming a Ger, he has a discharge of Keri, of semen. And then he becomes a Ger, and then what happens was, he right away has a discharge of Ziva. we say mitama miyad b'ziva. He could become a zav right away. Why don't we say an hour ago, before he became a yid, he already discharged Keri? Maybe that's the reason why he's seeing ziva now. There's nobody sick like this. And what the Gemara is trying to say is that he's very under stress. Not only did he have discharge of Keri, but he just went to the mikvah and he's accepting to be a Jew. And yet, right away, if he sees ziva, we already say, oh, you're a zav, you're tamei. So it seems that no matter what, this is not an excuse. If we don't accept that as an excuse. Even if you see shich v'zera and then you see zav, you become a zav. That makes no sense. Maybe for we don't accept that. Maybe for the first time we will accept it for a yid, but not for a guy, for a person who's becoming a yid. But for the second time, we don't accept these. Shich v'zera is not one of the 8th excuse. Ella, what does it mean? Shich v'zera is tamei. So it means like this. Tanoi, it's a machlokes tanoim. Actually, all these tanoim that we're going to see right now hold that the shich v'zera of a zav is actually mitama b'masa. So the Gemara is going back to the first teretz. That really what we're discussing in our Mishnah that says that the zav's shich v'zera, the zav semen is tamei, it means it's mitama b'masa. By just carrying it, you become tamei. And you said that we can't find a Tana that holds that 100% semen of a zav is matama b'masa. I'll show you that there are 2 Tanaim that hold that. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, shich v'zera shel zav. If a zav discharges regular semen, matama b'masa, just by carrying it, you become tamei. It's called me'es ma'es. In fact, you have to if you carry it, if he carries it for 24 hours. For 24 hours, we say Yematama B'masa of the Shich v'zera shel zav. But Rabbi Yossi Oima Yoimei. Rabbi Yossi says that the Shich v'zera of the zav is only B'tama you for not for the whole day, but actually till that night. Okay, so that night you could go into the mikveh, not a 24-hour period. What's the argument about? The Shmuel Rami. Shmuel had a contradiction in Psukim. It says in the pasuk, ish, if there is a man, tahar, that's not tahar, that means he's a zav. And then he becomes mikri laila. And then he has a discharge of semen. So you have a zav that has discharge of semen. So one pasuk says that you only tamei till that night. So if, let's say the zav discharges semen at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, by nightfall he's tahar. We don't care about that. Uksiv, and the other pasuk says lifnois erev yichas b'mayim. It's a 24-hour period. If it's a 24-hour period, so mandi amameis le'eis daikim lifnois erev. The one that says it's a 24-hour period, he views this part of the pasuk as the right interpretation of how long you'll become tamei. The idich daik mikre laila, and others say it's no, from the beginning of the pasuk that implies that if you touch it, you become tamei just till the night, not for a 24-hour period. So the Gemara asks, according to the opinion that says it's a 24-hour period, you become tamei. So then, what does he do with the haksiv mikre laila? But the pasuk says you only tamei till that night. That just the pasuk is just telling you when the semen normally discharge is at night, but not it's telling you that you become tamei till the night. You're tamei for 24 hours. So that is the machlokes. So anyway, we just finished this very difficult Mishnah. Not difficult. It's just that the concepts are not so familiar. But what we just learned is that the shich v'zara of a zav is tamei. That means if a zav just discharges shich v'zera, if he was a Torah person, so then that shich v'zera would only be mitama b'maga. But now that he's a zav, not only does it mitama b'maga, it also would be mitama if you carry it. And there are other rabbanim or tanoim who agree with that. New Mishnah, and it ends off on a light point. Mishnah, the last Mishnah Masechta Nazir Be'ez Hashem, it says, if a guy says, I want to be like Shmuel Hanavi, well, according to the opinion of Tana, Nazir HaYishmuel. Shmuel Hanavi was a Nazir. He was a Nazir Olam. That means he took upon himself never to be Metamal Mesim, to let his hair grow. And then when he needed a haircut, once in 12 months, he would take a haircut and bring kabbanas. That's how Shmuel was. He did with Rab Naharai. This Tana Rab Naharai, that's his opinion. Shenamar, it says in the pasuk in Navi that when Chana was praying for his son, he was praying for Umoira Roylayala Aroishai, that no Moira should not come upon his head. What does Moira mean? Well, it's spelled with a hey. So, but it says the same idea. Moira with a hey possibly could mean a razor blade or something to cut his hair. Hair cutting instrument shouldn't go on his head. And Nema b'Shimshon, it says by Shimshon, who we know was a Nazir, Umoira, his hair should not be cut. So there it says Nazir, Shimshon was a Nazir. So we have Gzera Shava, just like Shimshon was a Nazir. Although Shimshon was a Nazir that could touch to Mitamal Mesim, but Shmuel was a Nazir Olam, and he was a Nazir forever. He's not supposed to Mitamal Mesim, and also never to take a haircut unless he needed to after 12 months. The Nebbe B'Shmuel, Ma Moira Amur B'Shimshon Nazir, just like Shimshon was a Nazir, Moira Amur B'Shmuel, so also Shmuel was a Nazir. Amar Rabbi Yossi, so Rabbi Yossi said, Nah, v'aloi ein Moira ela shel basav adam. Chana was praying that he should not Moira, even though it's spelled with a hey, it means fear. And what Chana was praying for, that Shmuel should not be afraid of anybody. Not that she meant to say that my son Shmuel should be a Nazir. She meant he shouldn't be afraid of anybody. Amalei Rab Nari says, no. If that was the case, but the pasuk says, Shmuel was afraid of people. God tells Shmuel Hanavi, go anoint David HaMelech. So Shmuel says, I can't go. Eich Ella, how could I go anoint David to be the king? V'shama Shaul, the king, the current king, will hear about it, V'haraguni, and he'll kill me. So it's impossible that what he doesn't understand, if a lot of Chana's prayers were answered, then when he asked about that Shmuel should not be afraid of anybody, we see that prayer was not answered, because Shmuel, we see over here, was scared about Shmuel, and that's why he didn't want to follow God's mission. So Shekvar Hoya Olav Meir Shel Basav Adam. We see that Shmuel was afraid of humans. So therefore, that's why Reb Neroy said that Shmuel was a Nazir, and not that Shana was praying that he should not be fearing anybody. So the Gemara concludes with one question. I'm going to speak it out. That what's bothering with the Gemara is, how could a mother make her son a Nazir? A mother who's pregnant can say, I want my son to be a Nazir. We learned in the Mishnayos before that only a father can do that. So the Gemara is learning that when Elkanah gave birth to Elkanah, when Chana told her husband that she would like Shmuel to become a Nazir, Elkanah, her husband, said, Amen. I agree with that. So that leads us into this discussion. So Amalei Rav L'Chia B'rei. Rav said to Chia, his son. We go to the end of the page here, Amid Beis. Chatoif u'barich. You should be the one leading the benching, because that, even though everybody's answering, or you daven for the Amid and let everybody answer your bracha. You say the Chazar Sashatz because you get more reward. You don't want to be the one that's answering your main. V'chein Amalei Rav Huna Rabba B'rei Chatoif u'barich. You should grab and be the one to say the bracha, not to answer a main, not to be the one that answering main, because the answering a main gets a less of a reward. So the Gemara argues, L'meimer de mavarach adif. Are you going to say the person who says the bracha is better? Well, Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, Rabbi Yossi says, Gadol ha'oina amen, greater is the person who answers amen, Yosem in a mavarach. Greater than the one that made the bracha himself. And not only that, Ba'amalei Rab Neroy, who's the author of a Mishnah, Hashemaim, I swear to heaven, Kachi, that it's true. The guy that's answering Amen is even greater than the one that's making a bracha. And therefore, it's the same Rabbi Neroy who probably held that Elkanah probably answered Amen when his wife Chana said, I want my son Shmuel to be a Nazir. So we see that the Aina Amen is greater than the one that's making the Mevarech. And what's his proof? Why did Rabbi Neroy say that? Hey, I'll prove it to you. And you can see it from, I'll give you an example, what you can see it, what the Gemara is trying to say. When you watch the end of a World Series, it's usually the closing pitcher, the reliever who came in and pitched the last inning. He's the one, when he strikes out the last batter, gets all the rewards and they're jumping all over him, even though he only came in at the last moment. The rest of the starting pitcher probably was pulled out in the seventh inning. And yet the one that's getting all the rewards is the relief pitcher. That's what he's saying over here. Shaharei gul yarim miskarin b'mechama. The Marines start the war. V'giborim neitzchen, and the powerful ones finish the war. So, and who's getting all the accolades of the success and the champagne is the giborim. So the same idea. The one who's answering Amen is the one that's on a greater reward than the one who's making the bracha. I feel that way, by the way, before we end over here, is that the people listening to the learning get a better reward than me than saying it, because I get a chis knowing that you're there, and I can prepare and learn it together with you. So the Gemara answers Tanoi. It's a machlekes Tanoim. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. Echad amavorech, ve'echad oinu ma'amar mashma. Both of them get reward. The guy who's making the bracha and the guy who's saying Amen. The Tanakama holds that you give more schar. The schar comes faster to the one making the bracha than to the one answering Amen. And then the Gemara concludes. I'm not sure why it concludes with this, but Amar Rab Lazar Rab Chanina, Talmidei Chachamim marben shalom ba'olam. Talmidei Chachamim increase shalom. And as we said months before, that shalom, that they increase shalom in the world. Shalom is another way to express self-esteem, because loy shem, that you have a name. They increase peace amongst the world. Students who continue to learn not only increase the self-esteem within themselves, but their energy has cosmic effects. They affect the world. Shenama, we see in the pasuk, v'chol benayach limudei Hashem, v'rav shalom benayach, al tikra benayach. Don't care to read it, your sons, el benayach, the builders of the shalom in the world are the ones that are students who are studying the Torah. Hadron alach kusem eilehem naziris v'slikala masechta Nazir.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.